I don't know if I don't think the expectation is that LeBron will be back with the Lakers next season. So it seems like this is all just like I said, it doesn't really matter anymore. Um, I know Brian Windhurst was saying that he said LeBron has three options for next year. They can uh, go and become an unrestricted free agency, an unrestricted free agent, which he would be. He will be an unrestricted free agent this summer, and he can go and he can leave in free agency, or he can return to the Lakers, but he'd have to take a pay cut, or he can retire. And I would say the most likely scenario is that he leaves in free agency and maybe returns to the Cavaliers some way. But what I really wanted to focus on was the way that guys like Stephen A. and Nick Wright. Well, Nick Wright was the first person I ever heard say that LeBron basically saved the Lakers, right? And I may have repeated that on the podcast before. That LeBron basically he pulled the Lakers out of the doldrums when he arrived here because they had been down for Kobe's last few years, and then the first couple of years after that, uh, it was. I mean, I guess it was starting to look up a little bit before LeBron, just a smidgen. I mean, they weren't. I mean, they had the baby Lakers, right? Uh, and I think they went from. I mean, those last few Kobe years, they were just like the worst team in the league. And I think Luke Walton's first year, they won 26 games, I think. And then I think it went up to 35 or something like that. And I think LeBron's first year, they only won 34, right? But basically, the argument that Nick Wright made and that you see people making now is that LeBron basically saved the Lakers from, I guess, what they feel like would have been continued, uh, just mediocrity. He basically made the Lakers relevant again. And I, like I said, I've repeated that sentiment on here because he did do that. What I want to kind of push back on a little bit is perhaps the notion that it's like yes, he did rescue the Lakers from what was the at that time the worst stretch in the history of the Lakers franchise. But the Lakers have a history of. I always remember when Jeff Pearlman said this that basically with how he was impressed. Of course, Jeff Pearlman wrote a couple of books on the Lakers. One of them about the Showtime Lakers that became the basis of the HBO show. Um, but he was saying that he admired the way that the Lakers coming out of the '80s, Showtime, which was such a great memorable run, how they were able to um, like rebuild and reload and actually create another dynasty, which of course was the great Shaq Kobe dynasty, which then after they split up a few years later, then it's Kobe and Gasol and Lamar Odom, leading us to two more titles and straight finals appearances. And he was basically saying that there's I mean it wasn't like he basically said if you look at the Knicks and what they did in the '70s winning those two titles, that basically the Lakers could have gone the same way and been like this team that had like this really famous. Of course, the Lakers had a much. The Knicks only won two titles. Lakers won five in the '80s. But basically, that the Lakers could have been like this really. This team that was known for this really having these really famous teams at one point, but it was just really just like a relic, like a moment in time. But that's what the Lakers obviously, like I said, they created another dynasty, and he was giving them credit for that. And that's what and now obviously, that was Dr. Buss, and that was Jerry West, who, I mean, that's a whole different ball game. We would have been relying on uh, Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka do the same thing if LeBron had not gotten here. But I just the only reason I want to push back a little bit is because it is still the Lakers.